Gangnam Style.
Hmm. And welcome to the Kimchi Crime Podcast, where we delve into some of the most notorious criminals in Korean history. Once again, my name is SJ.
And my name is Walter. And if you're interested in getting a weekly dose of your Korean crime stories, please subscribe and give us a like because it'll give us more confidence in bringing you the content that you love. And we want to do that for our watchers out there. So if you also have suggestions about some Korean crimes you may have heard, please leave a comment below. So with that said, let's get started, SJ. And who are we going to talk about today?
We are going to go into a very interesting criminal this week. But have you ever heard of the story of the Hongil-dong?
There is a story in Western society, isn't there? Similar.
Yeah, you're talking about Robin Hood. Yeah, you're right. Hongil-dong is kind of the Korean version of Robin Hood, where it's kind of like Robin Hood or Hongil-dong will go around, find corrupt people and corrupt rich people and steal from them and kind of use that money to help people. And the person we're going to be talking about is kind of considered the criminal version of Robin Hood, Hongil-dong, although that's going to be very controversial. But nevertheless, it is more about what he did while he is on the run than the crime in itself. And I know last week, our previous episode was a little bit too much. And so we decided to do a bit of a off week where it's not as gruesome. It's not as terrible as the Chung In-hee case that we talked about. So today we're going to be talking about a fellow by the name of Shin Chang Won, arguably one of the more popular criminals in Korean crime history. So Walter, let's kind of go into who Shin Chang Won was.
Yeah, so for our watchers out there, infamous or famous, you be the judge. So yes, we are talking about Shin Chang Won now. He was born in Kimjae City in the North Jeolla province on May 28th, 1969. Now, he was born to a father who was a poor farmer. Now, that's sort of important to the story because it's a debatable topic as to why Shin did his crimes. And sadly, his mother died of liver cancer when he was only in elementary school. Now, he had quite a big family. I guess back in those days, it was quite common to have a lot of brothers and sisters. Shin's case, he had one sister, two older brothers, and one younger brother. And listen, I don't want to continue tying low education to crimes because there are a lot of people out there, but this is another situation where he didn't get a lot of education. He got up to middle school, but didn't end up graduating from it. Now, he would get his middle school diploma later, but not in middle school, in prison.
Yeah, when he's an adult, right?
When he's an adult. I mean, good on him for doing the diploma, but yeah, prison probably could have maybe not done that. But his first run-in with the law was when he was at age 15. Now, this is back in 1982, and he was arrested and sent to the juvenile detention center. Now, the interesting thing is, now, I can actually imagine some fathers doing this and some not doing this, but his father is the one who actually turned him into the police when he found that his son stole a watermelon. Now, I still think watermelons are overpriced these days, but back in the day, in the early 1980s, it was almost like a luxury fruit. It was an expensive fruit. And given that he was 15, he got a slap on the wrist. But sadly, that's not where it ended. Following that arrest, he would be arrested 3 more times, this time a little bit more heavy in regards to his crimes, the theft, battery, and once leaving the scene of the traffic accident, SJ, did someone die in this accident?
No.
Okay, just double checking. But it's in September 1989, things went from petty crimes to armed robbery and eventually murdering that led him to be given a life sentence.
Yeah, so obviously, I mean, you're seeing a trend here. Just a bit of a quick correction. He was born in May 28th, 1967,
67.
1969. Given 2 years in Korea, that's a big deal, right? It's a matter of young or not young
Yes, that's
in
true.
this case. But yeah, I mean, you might be going, well, his dad sold him out to the police because of a stolen watermelon. Remember, his dad was a poor farmer, right? And so
Mm.
it's kind of like, dude, like your dad is a farmer trying to sell whatever he can from growing all these stuff, and you stole from another farmer. How dare you? But you're right. I mean, watermelons back in the days were very expensive. But here's the thing, once again, about Shin Chang Won. You're right. I mean, it was theft, battery, again, little things here and there. Although, I'm not saying, these are little crimes. It's crime, but it did
Mm.
eventually lead to the armed robbery and the death of one of the victims there, which this is the one part that should have been talked about the most, but it's
Mm.
really not. Shin Chang Won, if you ask anybody that know about Shin Chang Won, you go, do you know Shin Chang Won? Oh, absolutely. Do you know what he did that sent him to prison? No, not really.
No.
It's really more about what he did while he was on the run and the escape from prison that garnered most of his I guess give him the infamy here. And so
Mm.
we find out that after he was arrested and sent to prison for, obviously being convicted of killing someone in the armed robbery, that he's going to escape. He's not going to
Mm.
stay along for a very long time there. And he said his escape from prison was motivated by what he said were inhumane treatment he claimed to have experienced at the hands of the prison guards. Again, I mean, it's a little bit different from a previous episode with Yu Young Chul, I think, where Yu Young Chul was kind of, beating up prison guards and stuff like that. It's
Mm.
the other way around. But anyways, he says this is his excuse from escaping the prison. But yeah, he ends up escaping from the Busan penitentiary in the southeast port city of Busan. This is on January 20th, 1997. So looking at when he was arrested in 1989, it was his 8th year in prison
Mm.
that he escaped, and they launched a nationwide manhunt.
Mm.
It's also interesting how he went about escaping from prison because, it's not like one of those things with Michael Scofield and Prison Break where it required all these crazy plans. Dude spent months losing enough weight to squeeze through a bathroom vent. He did saw through the bars and that blocked out the outlet, but he literally starved himself is what he did. And I mean, if you've ever seen like these bathroom vents, that's really, really narrow. And so you had to have lost a lot of weight and be very skinny for you to be able to get through that. But I mean, having been on the run for 2.5 years, that's a huge embarrassment for the Korean law enforcement.
Yeah. So what I find really interesting is that the fact that like the vents, I don't know how big they were, but I'm pretty sure like I can't fit my head in my bathroom vents. So he must have lost a lot of weight. But we'll actually talk about a bit of his looks later on and like how attractive he was. So maybe he's like this
Is that
model.
your opinion, Walter? How attractive he was?
He
Your
was
opinion?
he was a good looking guy.
He was a good looking guy. He was a good looking guy.
But let's talk about this famous situation where he was on the run that we've mentioned. Now, he was almost captured in July 1998 when he was recognized and questioned by a policeman in Gangnam, but he narrowly escaped following a scuffle between the police officers. He broke free and he just did another runner. Now, after some more investigations, the police ended up recovering the stolen car he had been driving. Now, if you've driven a stolen car, well, I don't want you to tell me that because I don't, but like, but I'm saying probably if you're a criminal on the run, don't leave so much evidence behind. But that's what Shin did. In the car, they found a diary detailing his escape and his activities, as well as a large amount of cash and other stolen goods as well. He had his one disguise, which seems to be a wig, stolen identification papers, and several car license plates. I mean, It looked like he knew what he was doing, but I
Yeah.
still probably wouldn't keep that in the car. But anyway, a lot of the money that he stole were from several break-ins from a very wealthy district in Seoul called Bangbae, still quite wealthy to this day. And Shin was also, he was very sneaky. I mean, the Gangnam incident, he got into a bit of trouble, but he managed to escape. But the way he would escape or try to hide from the police is climb into those manholes. And, you know, we know that manholes, SJ, they're not exactly clean.
No, and it's also very heavy to kind of pick up the lids, right?
Right, exactly. So remember the police were still looking at him, which, led to the sewer systems to find him because he still stupidly put it in his diary, I think. So the police, obviously, at this point, they're embarrassed, like SJ said. Now they're impatient. And like he got away, he escaped prison, he got away from police before. They were like, okay, we need everybody's help. It makes us look bad, but we do. 50 million Korean won for his well, in this day and age, it's not dead or alive, it's alive. But yeah, but 40,000 US dollars that converts to, which was the largest reward ever offered by the Korean police. And 40 grand back in those days, it's a lot of moolah.
Yeah, it does get you very far, but I mean, it really is the discovery of the stolen car that help out, I think, the police quite a bit because I think it's it's understandable that he had the wig. It's understandable that he had all the money that he stole in there. It's understandable that they found all these like stolen identification, because I mean he's constantly on the move, right? I mean he needs it. I mean the license plates. I'm sure he was kind of changing it back and forth if they find out. Oh look, go on a lookout for this particular car with this license plate. Find him, and then he'll just kind of change it. You know, he's probably reading the news all the time. But it's that diary, right? Like leaving behind crucial evidence like that was kind of a dumb mistake there. But nevertheless, that diary had a whole lot of information that also led to the development of other things. It also showed that the police had actually gotten very close to arresting him before. In fact, you know, Shin was, you know, stopped for minor offenses several times since his escape because he had his stolen identification with him. He got away basically. He said, like, you know, I'm so and so, or they didn't even know that it was Shin Chang Won. He thought it was, you know, a Walter or an SJ, a completely different person. And they also found out that he was always in the company of women while he was on the run. And so, like you said, Walter, not a bad looking dude.
Good looking guy.
Yeah. Considering that time, you know, and he had female fans. I mean, they knew who he was, still helping him out. Or maybe you could argue that these women did not know who he was and had helped him without knowingly. You can argue sort of both sides here. But it was nevertheless on July 16, 1999, where he was finally captured again. And this was at a home of a woman that he had been staying with over in Suncheon in South Jeolla province. So when they found him, they found 180 million Korean won. That comes out to 150,000 US dollars, as well as other stolen goods, and 150,000 US dollars back in 1999, just after the IMF crisis, the Asian financial crisis. That will get you at least an apartment back then.
Yeah, back then it definitely would.
Yeah, so it was a whole lot of money there. Apparently, he was captured because he was spotted and reported to the police by a repairman who was called in for, you know, typical stove work, gas stove work in the same apartment, and noticed him and reported to the police. But nevertheless, after all that, he was captured, returned to the same prison in Busan, where he had escaped 2.5 years ago.
Well, there's two things I'd like to bring up. Number one, if you are this really infamous criminal, you'd think you'd hide yourself from like repair people or anyone coming into your house, right? At least for people that you don't trust. I mean, your face is painted everywhere or on TV. And two, the same prison in Busan? I mean, like, is that silly? Like, do they put him in the same cell as well? Like,
well, maybe they narrowed the vents so to make sure that he can't lose any more weight. They fed him more. I don't know.
Yeah, that you concreted over. But like, let's look at all the criminal activities he committed while he was on the run. Now, Shin Chang Won committed 104 thefts, up to 5 burglaries, and this is where he goes from this sort of famous to sort of infamous, because he did commit one rape during his years on the run. And that's only to name a few of the crimes.
Yeah.
But it's what he did with some of the money that that he stole that garnered a lot of attention from the people. Now, remember, he was stealing from the rich people in affluent neighborhoods, Gangnam, etc. And he claimed to have given thousands of dollars to orphanages and homeless people, and even to disabled students during the year where he was on the run. Hence, like, this is why he was sort of reported as the Robin Hood figure. And this was a report by Reuters, international media outlet, and they gave him that nickname, Robin Hood. But obviously, again, South Korean police, extremely embarrassed. They don't like that. The police press representative was not happy with the article, saying, quote, the South Korean media were very familiar with Shin Chang Won's criminal journey and did not think of him as a noble thief. However, it appears that the foreign press wrote these articles without knowing the circumstances as well. They probably just saw, gave to the rich, stole from the rich, gave to the poor, and that's all. They didn't include the fact that he raped someone and he also killed someone. We intend to prepare a rebuttal and send it to the Korean offices of foreign media outlets, said the representative. Yes.
Yeah, and which is why Shin Chang Won, I think, depending on who you talk to, he's infamous or he's famous. His whole criminal journey, I guess, is quite a controversial one. And again, we mentioned the whole idea of him being sort of the Korean Robin Hood. And it's true. I think it was proven that there was evidence of him donating the money that he stole to orphanages and the different areas and things like that. But remember, they still found him with a whole bunch of money, right? It's not like he took all that money and then donated everything that he stole to the orphanages or what have you. And the other thing is, again, remember, he's a convicted murderer. He's also committed a terrible crime in rape, but it just feels like they kind of overlooked that aspect and said, oh my goodness, here's this guy who goes in and robs rich people. But Walter, think about this. If you're a thief, right? If you this is your career, you want to make money off of stealing from people, you don't go off stealing from the poor. You go to like rich neighborhoods and you target rich people, rich neighbors, rich homes, so that you can make a lot of money off of just one hit. And so do a bunch of them, make a whole lot of money. And it seemed like that's what an editorial in the Asia Times sort of wanted to point it out. And they were going against that whole Reuters report, because they said Shin didn't just steal from the rich or give away a large part of his theft. Instead, he stole whenever there was the opportunity. And remember, he was also accused of other crimes like rape is something that they pointed out. And they also pointed out, dude killed somebody during an armed robbery. So it's highly controversial, I would say, his whole, I guess, criminal career. But nevertheless, his escape was a huge embarrassment to the Korean police because of how long he was on the run for. And this is where it got even more embarrassing, because Shin Chang Won, after he got arrested, he came out and said, dude, you know how long, why I was able to be on the run for such a long time is because I bribed police officers. And he also, by the way, speaking of rape, he accused some of the officers of raping his girlfriend. And this could have been as kind of a threat, like, I'm going to capture you, but I'm going to do this instead. But following his statements, about 50 officers were disciplined for failing to capture Shin, and 20 were implicated in his accusation of corruption. So apparently there were at least 20 people who received money in exchange for not capturing him. But again, the public response was the interesting thing. They were leaning so favorably to Shin because of what he did. This whole idea that he stole from the rich. And mind you, not all rich people are bad people. Come on, guys.
No, yeah.
And it got to the point where his popularity even made him a fashion icon, because when he was captured in a very colorful t-shirt, almost like tie-dye. We're going to share this with our viewers out there. But this got to the point where people were like dressing up like Shin Chang Won, this shirt. And so kind of dumb, because you're going, man, this guy is so amazing. I'm gonna dress like a convicted murderer. So you see his popularity. But Walter, what do you feel about Shin Chang Won? I mean, this is a controversial figure, although he's kind of given this positive image by the public. I mean, he's still a criminal, right?
He's still a criminal. I mean, to be honest with you, I would have probably been on his side a lot more. Yes, you're right that not all rich people are bad people, but I definitely would have been on his side more if he didn't rape someone or he didn't kill someone. At the end of the day, he's done two extremely terrible lives. He's damaged the life of one person and taken the life of another. But I just like the fact that he became a fashion icon makes me feel like not even the public were that aware of his murders, more about his journey while escaping police. I guess that was why it was so popular, because he was all over the news. They had this huge sum of money to catch him. I don't know if these days people would try and dress after a murderer.
And I think just the timing of it too. Remember, this was like in the late 90s, right? And so Korea had just gone through that Asian financial crisis. They went into the IMF crisis, and people lost out on a lot of money. And so they were I think some people were kind of, I don't know, butthurt that there were some rich people out there, the people who were doing fine. And so stealing from the rich seemed like a very appealing thing to do. And I think that's one of the main reasons for why Shin Chang Won was garnering so much popularity from the public at the time. But it doesn't end there, right? Let's talk about his life in prison after all these years.
Okay, so yes, he was finally caught. He's in prison. He's currently actually locked up in Daejeon prison, but not surprisingly, prison life hasn't been good for him. It shouldn't be good, but he has had a pretty hard time. He has attempted to kill himself. The first recorded one we know of is in August 2011. He made headlines again for another attempt in May of this year, 2023. Just for context, he's around 56 years old at this point. Now, lucky or unlucky for him, he was found by a correctional officer while attempting in his cell. Now, they were able to resuscitate him, and he was immediately transferred to a nearby hospital, and he was admitted to this intensive care unit, but he was able to breathe by himself. So he was safe, basically. But if we just take a step back and talk about his first attempt at suicide, this is back in the 2011 one. There was a note that they found in his cell which read, "I'm sorry." I guess his sort of suicide note. So he was sorry for his actions. Like, which actions was he sorry for? Did he try to take his life because he could not live with the guilt? I mean, the one that I like, the crimes that I would imagine were the murder and the rape. I don't know if he'd be overly sad about the money that he was giving to people, but he took a lot of money, I guess. But the police said that he was quite shocked as well after his father, a month prior to his suicide attempt, had passed away. Now, obviously, that's going to leave many people in shock, and it wouldn't be surprising that some people also try to take their own lives. But since his most recent suicide attempt, and he's now back in prison, and he's just trying to be living as quiet as possible and live the rest of his days out in Daejeon prison.
Yeah, again, I don't think that I'm sorry part was in regards to maybe the armed robbery. Maybe it could have been. I think the police pointing out that he was very shocked at the death of his father a month prior to that first suicide attempt was kind of his way of, I think that's the I'm sorry part to his father, because uh, say what you will. I don't think he had a bad relationship with his father, right? I think in
Mm,
the past episodes we talked about how some of the fathers were either abusive or they were not in their lives. But this time around, I mean, his father, I think, did what he can to raise the family. He was a poor farmer, and just the fact that he could not be at the side of his father because he was in prison, maybe that was the guilt.
mm,
Is what I'm trying to get at. But he's very different. The attempted suicides, they're still not sure 100% why. It's either the fact that he's not going to see the outside anymore, and we've seen
mm,
him escape already, and maybe he's one of those guys, I need to be free. I'm a wild animal, I'm a wild horse, and I need to be
mm,
out on the outside, but if you're going to keep me inside bars, might as well just die. um we don't know because he just doesn't really talk much. He doesn't
mm,
really associate with some of the other fellow prisoners and things like that. He's very different from, let's say, like Yu Young Chur, who's basically like, I'm going to be in the, in prison for the rest of my life. Might as well make it a living hell for everybody around me. So we don't know. But again, just kind of going back to Shin Chang Won, not the most colorful criminal that we're going to be talking about on our show, but I mean, he's literally one of the most famous criminals, and that's, I think, the most interesting aspect of all this.
yeah, not the most colorful criminal in regards to crimes, but colorful in his way of fashion, you could
Yes,
say,
absolutely.
possibly. But yes, he is not the most notorious killer. I'm sure there are plenty other killers out there that who didn't get any attention from the media, in South Korea at least. But the fact that this guy kind of had this small fandom of women and maybe men as well, was quite interesting because yes, maybe he like I can maybe see he had a heart to try and donate back to the poor, the less fortunate. I mean, like we mentioned at the start, he came from a poor family. His mother passed away when he was very young. He wasn't well educated. Maybe he felt that he wanted to give back. But saying all that, he did kill someone, he
Yeah.
did rape someone. That doesn't make him that doesn't forgive him like just because he donated to orphanages. It's not forgivable for doing that to someone. But yes, in comparison to example Yu Yong Cho or some of the other people that we're going to be doing very soon, it's quite interesting that he gained probably some of the most media coverage that any criminal has in South Korea.
Yeah, I would say he's probably the sanest criminal that we're probably going to talk about. I mean, there's a long list of really, really crazy people out there, but you're right. Like, I think it was just the way that he was brought up, right? He was poor,
Hmm.
and he realized that no matter how hard he tries, he's not going to be able to get a good job. He's not going to be able to make a whole lot of money, and the only way to do it is, stealing money. And he's going to do basically hit up rich people because I guess they have an abundance of money is what we thought. But
Hmm.
it's, again, I'm not a fan of people standing criminals. I don't care how he was raised. I don't care if he gave money to the poor or anything like that. you know he he's still a criminal. He
Yeah.
killed somebody. He
Yeah.
took a life of a person. He's raped another person. He stole from people. And again, mind you, I think there's this misconception that all rich people are bad people and all rich people are corrupt. But no, there's a lot of rich people out there who started from the bottom and they really worked hard to get to
Hmm.
where they are. So I think he was kind of overly popularized, just considering the situation, the societal situation in South Korea at the time. But nevertheless, Shin Chang Won, I can't say that we're gonna probably hear a whole lot from him afterwards. But this is our way of taking a break because next week, Walter, it's gonna go cray cray once again. We're gonna get very upset talking about our next criminal. So this is our break week.
Yes, yes. Next week. Well, last week was extremely hard, and to be honest with you, next week is it's gonna be pretty hard as well because there is some sickening, sickening, sickening stuff that you'll be listening to, and I'm not trying to glamorize it. It is horrible to say the least, but Until then, if you enjoyed today's content, please leave a like and subscribe. Let us know what you think. Are there any kind of stories you've heard from South Korea that you're interested in hearing more about? We'd love to get to them. Until next time, SJ, we'll see you next week.
All right, we'll see you guys.